It's the hindsight factor again, but I remember really liking these episodes back in the day. Honestly, the Davies era Dalek episodes always struck me as being inventive and spectacular, and even this idea that the Daleks have run out of ideas worked because there's only so many times they can attempt to destroy the Earth before you realise it's never going to happen. Unfortunately, I seem to remember the human Dalek being spoiled for me by none other than the Radio Times. Nowadays, people know it as yet another website that produces extremely unhelpful articles about release dates, but those of us in the UK know it as a TV guide magazine, and in 2007 it had this on the front page. I guess back then spoilers weren't a thing until River Song first came along to popularise the term a year later. That's the context surrounding these two episodes on my end, so let's find out if these two episodes hold up today. Spoilers, they don't. Our story begins in a 1930s theatre in New York. Oh, come on. New York again? We were in New York in gridlock. This opening shot is so jarring. It looks like found footage with a bit of CGI. These people just look really stretched. Inside the theatre is Tallulah and her boyfriend Laszlo. The episode starts by playing silly buggers with us like it's a horror movie. This piggy running past the camera, the door shutting of its own accord, and a dependence on jump scares that any idiot could see right through. I'm also getting a bit of deja vu here. I'm sure we've already had spooky piggies in the revival so far. More to the point, people are bound to be rushing about backstage during showtime. In spite of this fact, Laszlo decides to investigate the sound of people rushing about and ends up in this closet. He doesn't attempt to leave the room either, which was kind of stupid, especially because you'd think somebody had just trapped him in there. Even weirder is that there's a sewage system accessible to a theatre. I've never been backstage in a New York theatre before. Maybe this is just normal. So for some reason, Martha doesn't have a problem with the Doctor taking her to New York. What's worse though is that, like in Gridlock, the Doctor decides to take Martha to the slums instead of doing something awesome.
So, they ended up here in Central Park.
It's so unfortunate rewatching this 12 years on because it's clear as day they aren't in New York. If you've been to Central Park like me, you can immediately identify they're in some woodland part of the UK. The Doctor talks about the homeless like they're still there in the present, which is true in that nearly 80 years on, homelessness is still a massive issue. Unfortunately, he gets interrupted by a fight that breaks out. I know it's meant to demonstrate just how desperate these people are, but I don't know, the acting, the dialogue, it's all just so cringy. It's also pretty crazy that the construction of the world's tallest skyscraper, as of 1931 to 1970, would happen during one of the roughest financial periods in history, and does make for an imaginative setting for a Doctor Who episode. Then we see what's happening on the upper floors of the Empire State Building, and boy oh boy does it get funny. It's just the melodrama that builds up to introduce the Daleks being in charge of the building. If the episode wasn't titled Daleks in Manhattan, they might have afforded to not show us who these people are working for, but not 10 minutes in, a Dalek shows up demanding an explanation. Am I to believe that the Dalek and these piggy boys were just standing in the elevator all day long waiting for the workers to kick up a fuss? Andrew Garfield then shows up on set as Frank. No, not this Frank. In no time at all, Mr. Diagoras, the guy from the Empire State, comes down searching for volunteers. The Doctor, for some strange reason, raises his hand. Now, I say strange because you have two events introduced at this point. One newspaper article saying people are getting snatched from thin air in Hooverville, and the other people going down into the sewers and not coming back up. You could say it's a hunch that he'd get to the bottom of both mysteries by doing this, but it honestly just seems like he's doing it because the plot demands it rather than for a particular reason. The same goes for Solomon, the leader of Hooverville, I guess. If another fight breaks out though, who's gonna break it up?
Because we're stuck together.
Right. And Frank, this guy's even worse.
My daddy died. Mama couldn't afford to feed us all, so I'm the oldest, up to me to feed myself. So I put on my coat, hitched up here on the railroads.
So let me get this straight. You abandoned your family in these desperate times? We're only 15 minutes in, and I already hate the characters. They get chased around the tunnels by the pigmen and find a way out. Unfortunately, Frank thinks himself a hero for some reason and picks up a dirty bit of metal. The opportunity to climb the ladder was so big that I can't believe he'd stop just to ward them off. Well, he gets what he deserves, the bloody idiot. Oh my god, this bit was funny.
We can't go after him.
Back at the Empire, we have more protesting from workers who just can't catch a break. It's nice that there's some commentary on how the homeless of the time are forgotten whilst the workers are exploited, but the acting is just terrible.
Just get out there and finish the job!
Oh no, the Dalek's back again. Like seriously, why do you need the big fanfare whenever a Dalek arrives upstairs? The Dalek says their species don't worry, kind of implying that they don't get emotional. Then not 30 seconds afterwards does this Dalek start getting emotional about his planet being gone. Aww. Mr. Diagoras continues to impress this Dalek, and we get another... Yeah, we saw Dalek Sec in the Next Time trailer, calm down. Diagoras then takes the lift down to the basement and puts on some gloves for some reason. I really don't get this guy either. 1 minute he's harping on about how he'll do anything to survive, and yet goes downstairs to where men have been taken and don't come back. Again, this seems to happen out of necessity over reason, and lo, he gets seized by the Piggy Boys. How predictable. I don't understand either why they picked him of all people. He's doing a great job yelling at the builders. They could go home right now and nobody would be there to stop them. So after climbing up the ladder, the gang meet Tallulah, the most annoying character of these episodes. She's the only one who has any connection to the Dalek Pigmen mystery, and she's absolutely useless. She starts off by pointing a fake gun at the trio, which also happened in Gridlock. They all start connecting the dots. Laszlo might have gotten involved with the Piggy people, and then we get this.
Now, creatures. Such creatures.
Just say pigmen.
How about you, Doctor? Where you from?
Have you never heard a British accent before, you dummy? Like, I know the question is more specific than that, but Christ, man, this script is diabolical.
He'd wait for me after the show. Walk me home like I was a lady.
You are a lady! Then she starts crying because depression. And Martha gives her a hug. These stinky people from the sewers have just crawled up before your performance is about to start, and you're suddenly opening up to them like they were your best mates. A whole segment of this episode is taken up to her dancing on stage, which adds absolutely bugger all to the story. This song that she's singing as well is just awful. Murray, you really dropped the ball on this one. Oh no, one of the scary pigmen is watching them dance. Ew, what a pervert. Oh wait, it's Laszlo! Martha sees him, and instead of just going round the back, she bumps her way through the performers to get to the other side. You child! Every theatre backstage I've been in has a path connecting the two wings. Again, British theatres, maybe it's different over there, but it's fairly clear at this point these episodes weren't filmed on location. Also, was it not in the previous scene Tallulah was worrying about keeping her job, and now this sewer person has just screwed up your performance? Martha then gets taken down into the sewers, and more of that awful script pours out of Tallulah's mouth.
Where are you going? Who's taking it? What are you doing? I said, what the hell are you doing?
Okay, I don't even think that was English. Back at the Empire, the Dalekanium is getting fastened to the mast.
I can't feel my fingers!
Well, why aren't you wearing any gloves, you moron? I think Mr. Diagoras had a pair. He might let you borrow them. Beneath all that surface bullshit, something interesting is going on with the Daleks. They argue with each other about what's about to happen, with Sek making a good point about humanity always surviving. Then he strips and completely consumes Mr. Diagoras and his gloves. It's honestly quite horrific, and I think it still holds up today, CGI-wise. In the sewers, Martha reunites with Frank, and she puts his hand where it really shouldn't be, and Tallulah's tagging along with somebody she barely knows. The Doctor then manhandles her, something rather, questionable, and the Doctor gives the usual spiel about what a Dalek is, how hateful they are, yada yada yada. Yeah, we've heard it all before. I suppose it justifies why he silenced her so violently, but it's just really bad dialogue. Oh my god, that sting is just hilarious. You'd have thought Tallulah would have recognised that voice that she was so madly in love with, but instead she asks a grand total of 10 stupid questions back to back in this scene.
Do you know where she is?
Stay back!
Were you in the theater? Why? Why were you there? Why me? What I got to do with this? Were you following me? Is that why you were there? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?
Everyone joins up for a bit of scanning and Laszlo sends Tallulah away so she doesn't get captured. Only thing is, she's now left alone to fend for herself. You think a bunch of piggies wouldn't just lift her off her feet and drag her to the lab? No wonder they marked you low intelligence. They find her in the next episode anyway, but these characters. After all that, we finally get to see what the final experiment is all about. Up until this point, the audience will probably be totally baffled by what on earth is going to happen. One Dalek said birth, so does that mean that Dalek Sec had sex with the guy he's swallowed? It is totally horrendous in a good way. Seeing Sec step out, brain in view, tiny and opening out, stretching. It's super creative, combining a human with a Dalek, and as I said earlier, it's truly spectacular. It was bad enough trying to picture the Daleks in the first series being created out of human beings, but this is something totally different. Instead of ignoring their creation or even shunning it, Sec embraces it. I'm just really happy that somebody made this mask as well. It's a work of art and is totally gross. Finally, we have this fantastic slow dolly zoom, creating a totally weird effect with a full-on close-up of this abomination. The dialogue is certainly something left to be desired, but honestly, it's still a totally wacky moment and worth watching just to admire the creativity of it. The second part of this story starts off rather positively. The Doctor and Sec's conversation is rather thought-provoking. Humanity's ability to destroy itself is something Sec admires, and that carnal thirst is fueling him. A combination of that and a Dalek must make him feel great. Even cooler is that now Eric Lauren isn't playing Mr. Diagoras, his performance suddenly becomes decent. Admittedly, he can't do much with that mask on, but he's totally unrecognizable. You can barely tell it's him aside from the clothes. The captives all run away though, escaping up the ladder. I bet Frank didn't think twice about climbing this time, did he?
They have ascended.
We can climb stairs now, but giving chase would be too expensive. Back in Hooverville, the Doctor makes the case that because the Daleks are vulnerable, that makes them more dangerous than ever. Kick them while they're down, I say. But it doesn't matter, because the piggies are coming. Everyone gets ready for a fight, and Martha has this stick in her hands. You've got to be kidding me. This is America! Just give her a bloody gun! Just as the first Dalek flies overhead, things go from bad to worse. The music kind of goes into a breakdown. It's the same music heard during the rebirth of Dalek Sec, but slower. This is a laboratory. And the dialogue, oh lordy.
It's the devil in the sky. God save us all, it's damnation. Oh yeah, we'll see about that.
The Daleks then start shooting everything but this crowd of people, which just looks hilarious. I get that they need the humans to continue the species, but I think the producers like explosions a little too much. Also, you'd think with all this violence going on in Central Park, there'd at least be some police presence at this point. We have a half-baked monologue from Solomon here, which ends rather cruelly as well. Unfortunately, anything redeemable about this scene is spoiled by the Doctor trying to steal the limelight here. The melodrama bug seems to have passed on to David here, and it's annoying because this conflict doesn't really have much to do with the Doctor. The Daleks won't shoot the Doctor either, so him just saying, "Kill me! Kill me!" doesn't do anything for me.
Do it! Just do it! Do it! Just do it!
All that aside, I do like this idea of the Doctor helping out the Daleks. It seems to me that his compassion would clash heavily with his hatred for their species. It is a little weird as it goes on though, how he unquestioningly goes along with this Frankensteinian raising the dead situation, and not at one point does he suggest reviving them and sending them back to their families. Sec and the Doctor team up briefly, where the grand plan is explained to him. Bloody typical. It's interesting though, this dynamic of the cult of Skaro, all obedient to Sec, but growing doubtful of his authority. I really liked that. But this illustration of the solar flare, like how would a Dalek be able to whip that up? It can't be accurate because the sun's too small and the Earth's too close. It looks absurd. It gets kind of strange too because Sec starts loving the humans a bit too much, wanting to put more human than Dalek into these near-death humans. They're humans now! I don't understand. Sec even suggests putting all the people into the TARDIS and sending them all to another planet once they've been fueled up, and the Doctor's just like, okay, I guess. Then we have some science with the Doctor spewing out words at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Ordinarily, I wouldn't mind it, but it's just filler here because everything the audience needs to know about is already in place. Literally, the Dalekanium is in place. What exactly is all this lab science waffle for? Lots of waffly filler happens on Martha's end as well. She and her two new friends get to the Empire State, taking the lift up to the top. Tallulah then has this bit about aliens picking New York York of all places in the world, which is just more melodrama that adds nothing to the story. Seriously, New York is great, but I don't need to hear people in Doctor Who trying to hand me a brochure. She then talks to Martha about their partners, learning nothing new and definitely not progressing the plot at all. As if by magic, the Daleks start filling up the bodies with 100% Dalek, turning on their leader, which I can't exactly call unexpected. It's kinda sad seeing him in chains, the only likeable Dalek ever, eaten by his own kind in spite of his flaws. So I know they're pig slaves and all, but how the Doctor escapes is just hilarious. Laszlo and the Doctor push past the pigs and not a single one of them gives chase or does anything. They just stand there. To make matters worse, the Daleks send specifically pig slaves up to get rid of the Doctor. They are the reason the Doctor slipped through your fingers. At least one of you could go up and, exterminate them. The Doctor and Martha reunite, but not for long because the Doctor's got to strap himself to the mast before the lightning hits. As much as it's goofy and slightly nonsensical, I kinda liked Martha's little plan to channel the electricity from the storm to kill whatever's coming up the lift. Well, anything beats her standing around with a stick. Hell, I even like the look of those Dalek-esque machine guns too, but Christ almighty, that montage of the marching human Daleks is cringy as well. The group then go back to the bloody theatre to get the attention of the Daleks. It's a shame the Doctor getting struck by lightning doesn't have any negative effects on him. I know you're likely to survive a lightning strike anyway, but a burn, a bruise, hell, fry up his hair, something. Things get even sillier because somehow two of the Daleks and Sek then appear on the stage. I certainly didn't see any emergency temporal shifting going on here. How did they get there in a matter of seconds? And why did they bother taking their prisoner with them? Because he has to die, right? Oh, it's so stupid. And just when I thought it couldn't get stupider, they do us one better. Just like in Smith and Jones, the Doctor has put his DNA into the monster in order to foil the antagonist's plan. Only this time it leaves a horde of Dalek Time Lord humans behind. Well, I guess this is what the face of Bo meant by "you are not alone." What an oversight as well that they send out all these humans to fight as war machines without considering how weak their flesh is. All that science and all of Sek's knowledge, and none of you thought to give these people some armor against the armed people of the United States?
You're idiots!
Dalek Khan? More like Dalek can't. Anyway, Dalek Khan can escape with another emergency temporal shift. I guess he was able to power it with all those bees they're keeping there. Yeah, man, look at the honeycombs behind him. Maybe that's what Dalek Sek meant by sacrifices. They all got stung. Fortunately, the Daleks won't be around for another year, but the episode lingers on with Laszlo getting healed by the Doctor, the miracle worker. Although, I wouldn't exactly call it a miracle. Laszlo still looks super ugly in that hat and coat. Even weirder though was that he suddenly ends up homeless. Why doesn't he just move in with Tallulah? The Doctor and Martha then look at the green screen again, still uncertain of what exactly their relationship is, and he leaves in a foul mood, just like at the end of Gridlock. For shame. So, did it suck? I'm just going to combine the rating of these two episodes because they're both pretty bad. I'm disappointed because I never thought they were bad, but I think the memory of the good stuff stuck out above the rest. There's definitely creativity buried under the surface of this story. It has a great concept, some nice themes, and all of the stuff with Dalek Sek is top tier. Sadly though, the same can't be said of pretty much everything else. It feels very uninspired with the exception of the Dalek human. The script, the characters, the music, all trash. It's a shame, but these are definitely the worst episodes of Series 3. Well, 42 might be worse. You never know. I give Evolving Daleks in Manhattan a 3 out of 10. Thanks for watching. 42 is going to be next, unless I pass 50 patrons overnight, in which case I'll review Father's Day instead. If 1% of you donate $1 a month, I'd be operated without strain or concern, so please consider supporting the channel. Comment below what you thought of these two episodes, or have a chat with us on my Discord server, where we will continue this discussion.